Thank you, Dr. Abrar. Next, we have the Honorable David Kilgour, who is a former Canadian Secretary of State for Asia-Pacific Affairs and a Nobel Peace Prize nominee.
Thank you very much. Guten Tag. I think that's the first word of German that's been spoken here today. And I studied it for a year. That's about all I can say. Thank you to everybody who came. I think I have 20 pages of notes, and I'm sure there'll be more by the time it's over. A lot of very wise things have been said, and I don't think I've disagreed with a word anybody has said, even when they contradicted each other. I've just come from the Balkans, by the way, last night, and we met with former victims in Kosovo, and what they said, some of them, and of course it's 10 years ago, are strikingly similar to some of the things we've been hearing today. So no one should think that this is just happening in another part of the world. It's not. It's happening. Unfortunately, it's happened in far too many places. One very wise man yesterday in Tirana, Albania, made the statement that anybody who could treat people the way we're hearing today, people are being treated, thinks that their religion is better than somebody else's religion. And the man who said that is of Muslim faith, and he's absolutely right. That's where so many of these terrible things come from. I've got a text. I'll just try to give you what might be called the highlights, but you may not think of the highlights. And a lot of it's been said. Let me try to give some of the plain truths about what's happening to the Rohingya. Since 2012, the Rohingya have been confined to ill-equipped internment camps in 8 townships. In 2007, 6,700 people, as we've heard earlier, died in violence, I believe attributed to attacks against the Rohingya, according to Médecins Sans Frontières. The Rohingyas have never been recognized, we've heard this many times, as an ethnic group and are not on the 1982 list of 135 recognized communities. Amnesty International, which after what we heard earlier, and I agree with some of what was said about Amnesty, quite a lot of what was said about Amnesty, state-sponsored apartheid. The Rohingya must be added to a list of 135 recognized ethnic groups in Myanmar. They are blamed for the crisis last August. The ongoing violence and underground discrimination has created this crisis must be ended. It's the world's, I believe it's now the world's largest stateless group of people. 620 to 690,000 Rohingya refugees, as you all know, languish in overcrowded camps in southern Bangladesh. And I must say, the people of Bangladesh are being remarkably good about this. I think everybody in the room would agree with that, I hope. The actions needed would include the UNHCR must be involved in verifying that resettlement in Bangladesh, if any, for the time being, conforms with international law and protects the rights and safety of displaced Rohingya. The international community, ladies and gentlemen, should plug the $280 million gap required to provide emergency funding, water, and other essentials. We should work with the Bangladesh government to develop a longer-term plan to support both the refugees and local communities in deprived areas. Now, perhaps our resolution will deal with this. This is not the time to talk about repatriation. Mon Zarni, we've heard, and I don't think I disagreed with a single word you said about anything today, Mon. I wonder if anyone else did. He says that, I don't need to tell him what you said, you just told him. We need to accept the reality that Burma, the society, the military, and the government of Aung San Suu Kyi has shown absolutely no indication that it will accept the Rohingya as an ethnic community who deserve full and equal citizenship as well as basic human rights. I used to have Aung San Suu Kyi's photograph on my wall for about 20 years, but I'm afraid it's not there anymore. Suggested actions. The Rohingya need a UN-protected area for their return, a piece of earth which we've heard so eloquently that they can call their home, where they don't need to worry about being slaughtered in their houses and villages being burned. We're looking at the land from which the Rohingya have been driven out, the land where they historically belong since I believe it's the 8th century, if this isn't a mistype. A small number of genuinely concerned leaders around the world must call perhaps for a special conference to look at this issue, to create an autonomous region for the Rohingya. Kofi Annan, I don't think has been mentioned today. I think we should implement the Kofi Annan report as soon as possible. Perhaps some of you will have comments on that. Crimes against humanity. Well, we've heard this many times today about the evidence of mounting crimes against humanity have taken place with impunity. The UN has described the situation as a textbook example of ethnic cleansing. The evidence of genocide includes such things as this, at least 5 mass graves, evidence of that. The Reuters special reporters, which we've been seeing on BBC practically every night. And I understand you've all seen that horrible picture of those 10 men who were, before they were hacked to death or shot. Now, this is I think this is interesting. Lex Rethiel, I don't know who personally, a scholar at the Brookings Institute observes, quote, "For Western countries and advocates of democracy and human rights, the situation presents a conundrum. How to punish the government that presided over the ethnic cleansing of the Rohingya without making life worse for millions of civilians in the country," close quote. Maybe we can talk about that in a moment. Well, after you. Observers and monitors should be allowed into northern Rakhine province so as a base of evidence genocide can be compiled. Those identified as perpetrators of those rights crimes must be identified and charged. The UN must lead the charge for a local global arms embargo and an end to the training of the people in Rakhine province. There are at least 2 members of the Security Council, ladies and gentlemen, who are selling arms to those people, as far as I understand it, and that is absolutely despicable. The military must be stopped from receiving weapons and training from, well, I'll name them, including China, India, Russia, and another country that I won't mention that's not part of the Security Council. Incitement to violence. You've all heard about this terrible Buddhist monk who's incited people to violence in Rohingya. 250,000 people watched him do this not very long ago. On the other hand, a person I think we all admire, I certainly do, Dalai Lama, said last September, quote, "Those people who are harassing Muslims, they should remember Buddha. He would definitely give help to those poor Muslims. So still I feel so very sad." That's what the Dalai Lama said. The international community should increase its communications with moderate Buddhist leaders such as the Dalai Lama. Leaders in government and civil society who would hold more tolerant and progressive views should continue to speak out. International proponents of Myanmar's democratic success need to balance censure with encouragement. They should also empower moderates within Myanmar who espouse tolerance for the ethnic minorities. I think my time is just about out. We have to put more pressure on the government of Myanmar, obviously, to release the 2 journalists. There's a huge amount of disenchantment with Aung San Suu Kyi. She is an honorary citizen, by the way, in Canada. And I don't know how many other countries, but I think there are a number of others. Bill Richardson resigned from her advisory panel, recently charging her with lack of moral leadership. Last autumn, the Nobel laureate Archbishop Tutu, the moral voice of South Africa after apartheid, said, quote, "If the political price of your ascension," referring to Aung San Suu Kyi, "to the highest office in Myanmar is your silence, the price is surely too high." We've heard from Professor Yengi Lee this morning. I think we could talk about the Constitution.